Hi everyone, it's Jessica. Thanks for watching with me today. So today I'm creating a project for a collaboration I do with a couple of friends here on YouTube, and this is our sketch hop, where one of us, in this case it was Melissa, chooses a sketch and we all follow the same sketch and theme. So she chose this one here. It was by Tracy Reed, and the theme that she gave us was friendship. Now I have these two 4x6 photos of my daughters, and they were both actually taken on the same day, but they have two very different feels to them. One of them is just the girls playing and standing in the middle of our kitchen, and the other one is the girls when we went to go do a packet pickup for a race that I was running, and the girls were just standing there in front of the race sign, and they had their baby dolls with them, and it was really cute. So I thought that that would work out well for that friendship theme that Melissa gave us, since otherwise I didn't really want to have two individual pages just for these random pictures. So I'm going to combine them together since they were on the same day anyway. Now I pulled these papers from my stash. These are just some that I bought at Joann a while ago. They are by Maggie Holmes from the Woodland Grove collection. And I really liked that butterfly pattern paper because a lot of the colors in there matched the colors from my photos. The other thing I really liked about that butterfly paper is that the back side had a pattern that was not directional. So when I pull it down to follow that sketch that Melissa gave us, it's not going to interfere with the pattern on the back side of the paper at all. It'll work out perfectly. The other pattern paper I'm going to use was still from that same collection by Maggie Holmes that I had bought at the store, but I had only that scrap piece left, but I am pretty sure that if I do a little bit of careful gluing and folding of that butterfly pattern paper over, I can make it look like I have a full sheet of that back there that this layout is built upon. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt that. I'm going to start by cutting off these branding strips. And I did also trim my photos down to be just a little bit smaller because based on the sketch, that fold over paper should really kind of go a little bit deeper and more at a bigger angle across the page. But because I have to kind of work with that scrap piece that I have on the base, my fold is not going to go down as far or as stark of an angle. So I felt like the way that the photos would end up getting layered over things, they couldn't be quite 4x6 photos that way. So I want to say that I trimmed them down to 3.5 by 5 for each of them. So to get this layout going here, I did add a little bit of adhesive to the part that's not going to show, just to make sure that I've got this butterfly piece tacked down. You'll see as I go through this layout, I do add glue more and more as I kind of finish various parts, and I'm sure that I'm done working with it. So it'll end up getting glued down just a little bit more, but this is enough to kind of hold that butterfly piece in place. And then I'm just trying to see how this is going to look as I put my photos over it. And I think that they're small enough now that that'll work. I did contemplate trying to maybe tuck them in behind the fold, but then I didn't really like the way that that looked. I felt like it covered up too much of the photo. So I am going to go over top of that pink patterned paper that is folded over. And I also thought about maybe not giving a very good crease or bend in the photo or in the paper so that it had some dimension. But in the end, I decided to really burnish that. In fact, I even grabbed my bone folder and crease it down a little bit more. So it is definitely flat to the page, but you can still tell that it is a single piece of paper that has been folded over. So I feel like in that way, I am following the sketch. By the end of my layout, though, mine does look a little bit different from some of the elements in the sketch, but for the most part, I followed it, and it was a really great jumping off point. So now that I've got all of that base stuff down, I was thinking about how I could still make that fold kind of something special or extra, since I didn't leave, the bend in it or the dimension there. I wanted to do something to kind of really make it stand out that it was the flap that was folded over. So no surprise here. I'm going to add a little bit of hand stitching. So I grabbed my ruler that had some stitching holes, and just to get things started. And then I decided that I wanted those stitches to be even smaller. So I just eyeballed in between where those original holes were that I had poked, and I poked an additional hole to make the sizes even smaller. It did take me a little bit of time to do that stitching, but I actually had to take my daughter to soccer practice that same day. So I just took my needle and thread with me in the car and sat in the parking lot and got all of this stitching done. The other moms who were close to me in the parking lot were probably wondering what in the world I was doing, but I was just getting my stitching done for this layout. All right, so now that I've got all of that done, I can go ahead and start thinking about some of the embellishments. Now, I did struggle at first with some ideas for this because, I've got the butterflies on there, which to me means flowers, but I didn't really feel like flowers would be an appropriate embellishment really for this layout because the photos themselves just didn't really seem to call for floral embellishments. And so I will bring in some butterflies, but otherwise I was thinking of how I could add some embellishments, and I decided to go with shapes. So I die cut out this fancy doily from one of my close to my heart die cuts. And I also thought I would layer up some more pattern paper. So I found this little tiny scrap. It's from the same collection that the other two pattern papers are from. And I like the idea of bringing in a little bit of that green. So I'm just going to tuck it behind where the photos will go here. So that way it kind of breaks up all of that pink that's up at the top of the page. And then I had this little fussy cut tag it was from an old like Pocket Life card that I've had in my stash forever and ever. And I thought that worked really well. And then, like I said, I'm also going to bring in this doily, which was from a die cut that I had. And so I'm just kind of focusing on shapes instead of rather like flowers or leaves. And I'll just do a few butterflies. So that ended up working out pretty well. I just felt like with the girls kind of standing there holding their baby dolls, and we're at like a race packet pickup, and then they're in the kitchen with their aprons on. I just didn't really think flowers were going to be the way to go. So I am pretty happy with using these pieces instead. I did also grab one of my alphabet die cuts and cut out the word friends to go along with our theme that Melissa gave us. And I think there's going to be just enough space over there to the right of those photos that I can go ahead and glue that down in that pink space. So I'll go ahead and get those paper layers and shapes glued down to the page. And I had made myself some pencil marks just to remember where exactly they were going to go now that I've moved my photo. And so that worked out pretty well. For the doily, I did have to use a little bit of liquid glue to get in all of those dainty little pieces and holes. That one was not quite as easy to glue down, but again, I had made some pencil marks and it was pretty easy to get it all layered up exactly the way I had wanted it to be. And now that I have those pieces tucked in, I'm pretty sure that I'm done with this flap. So I'm going to go ahead and sneak in just a little bit more adhesive to make sure that everything on this folded piece of paper is going to stick down to the bottom page. So I used a little bit of tape runner, a little bit of liquid glue, and we are good to go. So now it's time to add those photos. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna kind of layer them, I think that'll work, and have them both a little bit crooked. And I'm also trying to be careful to make sure that I have all the spots covered where, that little scrap piece of green paper and everything are located, that you can't see any of the pink behind them. I realized that even though I had folded that paper down flat, there was still a little bit of dimension there. And so I did have to sneak a little bit of thin 3D foam behind the top of my photos to get them to lay correctly. I lost a little bit of footage here. Off camera, I did stamp from that same stamp set that I'm going to grab the butterfly from. I had the words good times and together, and I thought that rounded out the title nicely. So I stamped that in some Harbor color ink to match the Harbor colored cardstock that I used to cut out the word friends. And then I also stamped my butterflies, and I did 5 of them, and I'm going to need to fussy cut those so that I can place those around the page. If you caught my last layout, I was doing a little bit of fussy cutting, and that was right at the time that my cat Atticus decided to jump on top of my scrapbooking desk, and he was really trying hard to get one of his whiskers cut off. So I was glad to be able to do this fussy cutting in some peace and quiet here. So I'll go ahead and cut all 5 of those out and then kind of play around with where they're gonna need to go. The other thing I'm gonna do to work on finishing this up is putting a little bit of twine through the top of that tag. I do have black embroidery thread in my stitching, and I have matted the photos in black. So I thought maybe about using some black twine in that tag, but it didn't, it kind of clashed a little bit with that harbor color of the title. And so I didn't want to do that. I really liked the brown and white twine that I've got there, but then I didn't really have any brown anywhere else in the layout. So I decided to stick with just plain white twine, and that ends up looking really cute. So in a second here, I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera once I figure out the placement of all of these butterflies. They were really kind of giving me a headache. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should go back into my stamps and find like a smaller butterfly, something that looks a little bit different, just to kind of mix up the sizes and the style a little bit. But I didn't really want to go too butterfly crazy either. I was trying to keep it fairly simple. I mean, this is kind of a busy looking layout, especially with all of those butterflies and that pattern paper down at the bottom. So I didn't want to add too terribly much. So I decided to stick with this. It does make a nice little V or a visual triangle and kind of mimics the shape of that folded down paper as well. One of my favorite ways to adhere butterflies to my projects is to put a little bit of adhesive in the body part in the middle, and then little squares of foam tape on the wing, so that way the butterflies look like their wings are fluttering and they're about to go flying off of the page. So I'll go ahead and get all of my butterflies down that way with just that little bit of glue there in the middle, and then some foam squares on the wings. So like I said, this is part of a collaboration that I do with a couple of friends here on YouTube, and we post our videos on the second Friday of every month. One of us will pick a sketch and a theme for everybody else to follow. And then it's a lot of fun just to kind of see how, using the same ideas, everybody comes up with very different projects. So make sure that you check out the playlist that is linked in the description box down below and also at the end of the video, so that you can see what everybody else did with the same sketch that Melissa shared with us. So we also have a new player playing along with us starting this month. So I'd like to welcome Nicole Santos to our group. I can't wait to see what she does. I have always admired her work here on YouTube and on social media. So for the final touch, I did get down a couple of little gems, so just a tiny bit of sparkle in there. And, again, after looking at it, I decided this is going to be enough. I didn't want to make it too much busier. And so I'm trying to keep it fairly simple otherwise. So yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys got a little bit of inspiration and some ideas for, what to do, things other than embellishing with flowers all the time. Although I do love a good floral cluster, it is kind of fun to also use a couple of shapes. So again, be sure to check out that playlist for everybody else's videos, and I will see you guys next time. Happy crafting. Bye.